Behind seemingly peaceful homes sometimes lie secrets chilling enough to make one's blood run cold. When love gradually transforms into control, resentment, and desperation, the family itself becomes the starting point of tragedies with no way back. In a remote village in Yunnan, a man went to work far away and then disappeared for half a year without a single call or message. His worried relatives reported him missing, but his wife remained eerily calm. Only when an anonymous phone call came in was the buried truth finally uncovered. Meanwhile, in California, a Chinese-American female doctor suddenly died in a fierce fire at her million-dollar mansion. Everything initially appeared to be an accident, until abnormal traces at the scene and relationships within the family began to unravel today. Join Crime Documentary Files as we step inside these two families to see the dark side of marriages that ended in tragedy. On February 28, 2015, at a police station in Kujing City, Yunnan Province, a man and woman walked in to file a report. The man, his face filled with worry, informed the police that his uncle, a man named Tian, had gone to work far away half a year ago, but up until now there had been absolutely no news or sign of him. He suspected his uncle might have encountered something bad, that something serious might have happened. However, compared to the worried, anxious expression of the man, the woman sitting right next to him displayed a completely indifferent, coldly detached attitude that was hard to understand. She just sat there, absorbed in her phone, as if this was a stranger's business. Though the two came together to report to the police, their attitudes and expressions were completely different, making the officers present at the station feel something was off. They immediately approached and asked the woman about her relationship to the missing person, and the answer made everyone even more surprised. It turned out this indifferent woman was none other than the missing man's wife. Her name was Fan Su. Fan Su explained that Tian had gone to Beijing to work as a laborer to earn a living. According to her account, 2 days after leaving, he called home once to report he'd arrived safely. She said he was probably busy with work out there and didn't have much time to contact home. Fan Su added in a rather calm tone, "After all, Tian is a man working as a laborer out there, busy with work. How could anything happen?" However, Fan Su's explanations only made the police feel even more strange and suspicious. They reasoned that no matter how busy someone was with work, it would be impossible for them to go months without making a single phone call home to check on their family, wife, and children. This was completely abnormal and unreasonable. Moreover, Fan Su's cold, indifferent reaction throughout the interview only increased their suspicion. Noticing these abnormalities, the police asked her, "So when was the last time you saw your husband?" Fan Su paused to think for a moment, then replied, "It was sometime in October 2014. She recounted, "That morning, I had just woken up when I saw Tian had already packed his luggage. He told me he wanted to go work as a laborer to earn extra income. After saying that, he pushed open the door and left." Through further investigation, police learned that Tian was actually Fan Su's second husband. Previously, in 2008, Fan Su's first husband had passed away, leaving behind 3 young children. Life at that time must have been extremely difficult and exhausting for her. Later, Fan Su decided to remarry and married Tian. In this new marriage, the two went on to have another child together. Thus, in this household, there were a total of 4 children who needed to be raised and cared for. With such a large family, daily living expenses naturally became very substantial and burdensome. Because of this, Tian frequently had to leave home to work as a hired laborer to earn extra income. Fan Su explained to police that she was used to her husband not being home because of work. Therefore, when he left again this time, she didn't feel anything strange or unusual. Thinking it was just a normal work trip like previous times, police continued digging into details and asked further, "After he left, did Tian call home?" Fan Su replied that about 2 or 3 days after leaving home, he called once to report he was working as a laborer in Beijing and everything was fine. Police didn't stop there and continued asking, "So, after that call, did he call again?" Fan Su sighed, then said in a somewhat calm tone, "He's naturally a man of few words, doesn't like to communicate much. Maybe out there he didn't earn as much money as expected, so he felt it wasn't convenient to call home. Then she added quite naturally, "Actually, I even suspect he has another woman out there. Maybe all the money he earned went to that woman, with nothing left to send home to support his wife and children. That's probably why he suddenly felt ashamed and didn't find it convenient to call anymore." However, Fansu's explanations were completely unconvincing. According to the nephew's statement, Tian had an elderly mother whose health was always weak. He was an extremely filial son who regularly spent time returning home to visit and care for his mother. Previously, during times when there was no farm work in the village, when Tian needed to work as a laborer outside to earn extra income, he would only look for work close to home so he could conveniently travel back to visit his elderly mother and care for his family. Therefore, with such a personality and circumstances, there was absolutely no way he would abandon his entire family, his weak elderly mother, his wife and children, to go work in distant Beijing. Furthermore, the nephew emphasized that during every New Year or important holiday, Tian would regularly return home to reunite with his family. Even when he had to work far away, he always maintained regular contact through phone calls and messages to stay updated on everyone's situation. Never before had he lost contact for this long, half a year without any news at all. Recognizing these clear contradictions, to find out the truth about whether Tian actually went to Beijing as Fansu claimed, police conducted an investigation and thoroughly checked all his travel records. They examined the bus ticketing system and public transportation. According to records from the system, in October 2014, the time when Fansu claimed Tian went to Beijing, there were absolutely no bus ticket purchases made under Tian's name. However, the problem was that because such a long time had passed, the video footage from surveillance cameras at the bus station had been overwritten and deleted according to standard retention procedures. Because of this, police had no way to determine with certainty whether Tian might have used fake identification documents or someone else's ID to purchase tickets. To quickly clarify the case, police decided to go directly to the village where his family lived to conduct an investigation. The villagers the police interviewed all had good impressions of Tian. They described him as a hard-working, responsible man who tried his best for his family. Each time he went to work as a laborer away from home and earned money, he would hand over his entire salary to Fansu to spend on the family. However, they said Fansu was not a dutiful woman. On the contrary, she frequently had improper relationships with many men outside. The villagers even knew clearly that she had several lovers besides her husband. In October of the previous year, before Tian's disappearance, the couple had a big argument over buying a water buffalo. Specifically, Tian had bought a water buffalo. However, Fansu was extremely angry, believing this purchase was a waste of money. While Tian was away working, Fansu sold the buffalo on her own without consulting her husband. When Tian found out, he was furious. The two had a fierce, intense argument because of this. After that, Tian secretly bought another buffalo without telling his wife. According to the villagers, the couple's marriage had not been good for a long time. They frequently argued over trivial matters in daily life, and even often got into physical fights. After hearing these assessments and accounts from villagers about the couple's real life, combined with observing Fansu's cold, emotionless attitude toward her husband's long disappearance, police became increasingly suspicious of her. They suspected Fansu had killed her husband because she wanted to be with her lover. However, this was just speculation. In the legal system, to convict someone, especially of murder, there must be authentic and convincing evidence. The case hit a dead end. Just then, an anonymous phone call came to the Hui's County Public Security Bureau. A man on the phone said, "I know Tian's whereabouts, Fansu, and a man surnamed Li killed him, then threw him down a well." The police receiving the call wanted to ask for more information, but unexpectedly the other party immediately hung up. Receiving this lead, police felt this tip had very high credibility. Because the case hadn't been widely reported in the media, and police hadn't disclosed any materials publicly, if not for someone who knew about it, they fundamentally couldn't know who Tian was. Moreover, since they already suspected Fansu, police very quickly deployed an investigation based on the information provided by the mysterious person. Based on information from the mysterious call, police deduced the well the man mentioned was actually a water cistern. In this locality, due to climate and terrain characteristics, almost every household had its own water cistern for storage. These water cisterns had movable lids covering the top, making them look very similar to ordinary wells from the outside, easily confusing outsiders. But the problem was the number of water cisterns here was too numerous and widespread. Just within the surrounding village area alone, there were hundreds of different sizes. To check each one would be an enormous amount of work. The investigation team sat down to analyze the situation. They believed Fansu couldn't possibly risk throwing her husband's body into someone else's water cistern. That was too dangerous, easily discovered by the owner during daily water use. The highest probability was that she hid the body right in her own family's water cistern, the safest and least suspicious place. Based on this analysis, police decided to prioritize checking the water cisterns on Fansu's family property first, then expand the scope if needed. At the same time, they also concentrated forces on tracking down the mysterious man who had called with the tip. According to information from village officials, Fansu's family property had a total of 3 water cisterns. Police quietly checked all 3 cisterns, but did not discover Tian's body. With this result, they had to expand the search scope, beginning to check water cisterns of nearby residents. On July 15, 2015, after 3 days of non-stop work, the investigation team had checked about half the water cisterns in the entire village when suddenly there was a breakthrough. A resident proactively came to police to provide an important lead. This person said that about half a mile from Fansu's house, up on the mountain, there was a plot of wasteland that had been abandoned for a long time. Previously, when this land was still being cultivated to serve irrigation for crops, residents had built a water cistern there. Hearing this information, police immediately mobilized forces to proceed to that wasteland. Because this area had been abandoned too long, weeds grew thick and dense, tall and obscuring visibility. It took a while of searching through the grass before they discovered the water cistern hidden inside. This cistern had a distinctly different characteristic from the others. Instead of having a movable lid on top as usual, it was completely sealed with cement. Investigators quickly used specialized tools to pry open the cement layer sealing the cistern's opening. As soon as they opened it, a thick, unpleasant, putrid smell immediately wafted out. Very quickly after, they pulled up an object shaped like a person, wrapped tightly in thick black plastic bags. Outside the plastic bag, there were also many loops of rope wound tightly, clearly to secure and keep the bag from opening. Police carefully removed each loop of rope. When they opened the plastic bag, what was inside confirmed their worst fear. It was indeed a human body. This body had hands and feet, bound tightly with rope. The entire body had decomposed severely from being submerged in water for a long time, making facial features nearly impossible to identify with the naked eye. To accurately determine the victim's identity, police conducted sampling and DNA comparison. The final analysis results confirmed the deceased was Tian, Fansu's husband, who had been missing for many months after Tian's body was finally found. The police's next task was to track down the real perpetrator behind this case. At this point, the technical team traced the phone number from the previous tip call. After investigation, they identified the caller. His name was Zhang Bin. When police conducted deeper investigation into Zhang Bin, they discovered he was actually one of Fansu's many lovers. During questioning with police, Zhang Bin said he was from another province and had come to Yunnan to contract and carry out construction projects. During that time, Fansu was working at the construction site as the person in charge of cooking for workers. Being far from home, Zhang Bin often felt lonely and bored. When he saw Fansu with her attractive appearance, he developed feelings and began actively pursuing her. Things progressed quite quickly. The two started dating, and the relationship quickly developed into an affair. Zhang Bin admitted that throughout their acquaintance, he had spent a considerable amount of money on Fansu, totaling tens of thousands of yuan. He even planned to build a house in Huize, thinking this relationship was serious and long-term, so the two could live together. However, After dating for a while, when Zhang Bin formally proposed the idea of building a house and starting a life together, Fan Su suddenly told him, "I have a husband who's working as a laborer out there. We can't rush to make this relationship public too soon." Zhang Bin felt the situation suddenly became complex and troublesome. He immediately asked her why she didn't say from the beginning that she was already married. Fan Su, seeing Zhang Bin's surprised and displeased expression, moved closer and whispered softly in his ear, "Don't worry, that husband of mine is already dead. His body is lying in a water cistern." This statement was like a thunderbolt striking Zhang Bin's head. He was so frightened his whole body went cold. He kept interrogating her, repeatedly asking whether she had really killed her husband or was just joking to scare him. Fan Su initially avoided the question, but unable to withstand Zhang Bin's persistent questioning, she finally had to admit the truth. Not only that, Fan Su also revealed that at the time, there was a man surnamed Li who helped her throw her husband's body into the water cistern. Hearing these blood-curdling accounts from Fan Su, Zhang Bin immediately realized he was in an extremely dangerous situation. He felt he absolutely should not continue maintaining a relationship with Fan Su anymore, or he himself would encounter trouble later. Therefore, Zhang Bin told Fan Su he had to go to another province for a new construction project and would be busy and difficult to contact after that. He completely cut off all contact with Fan Su, no longer communicating with her at all. Until one day, he suddenly thought that if Fan Su's deeds were exposed later, he himself would become an accomplice. To protect himself, Zhang Bin immediately called the police, telling everything he knew. After speaking, he hung up. After Tian's body was found, police immediately arrested Fan Su. Faced with Zhang Bin's accusation and police interrogation, Fan Su quickly admitted to killing Tian, but when police asked who the man surnamed Li was, she refused to say. Police deduced this man surnamed Li had a romantic relationship with Fan Su, otherwise he wouldn't risk helping her commit a crime. But when police checked several men surnamed Li connected to Fan Su, all were eliminated from suspicion. The case gained another important lead when a village resident mentioned a special local custom. If a man married a woman in the village and settled there permanently, within 3 generations, he would have to change his original surname to his wife's family surname. Based on this information, police conducted thorough screening and investigation. They discovered in Fan Su's village there was a man named Wang Bai. According to records, he was originally surnamed Li, but after marrying a wife in the village, he changed his surname to Wang according to local custom. Notably, Wang Bai's house wasn't far from Fan Su's. With this lead, police immediately summoned Wang Bai for questioning. Faced with evidence and interrogation pressure, Wang Bai had to admit that he only helped dispose of the body and did not participate in the act of murder at all. According to Wang Bai's statement, that evening when he arrived at Fan Su's house, Tian was already dead. Fan Su had asked him to help throw the body into the water cistern behind the mountain. To convince Wang Bai to agree, Fan Su promised to pay him 7,000 yuan if successful. Tempted by the 7,000 yuan, he decided to agree to help Fan Su dispose of the body. As for why Fan Su killed her husband, she stated that on the day of the murder, the two argued again over buying a water buffalo. The argument became more and more intense. In her anger, Fan Su grabbed a wooden stick and struck the back of her husband's head. Tian immediately fell down and didn't move. She checked and discovered her husband was already dead. Panicking, she found rope and plastic bags, wrapped the body and put it in a bamboo basket, then found Wang Bai, gave him 7,000 yuan and asked him to help carry the body. Wang Bai couldn't resist the temptation of money and agreed to help her. After that, the two used bamboo poles to carry the bamboo basket up the back mountain during the night and threw the body into the abandoned water cistern. The next day, Fan Su felt uneasy, afraid of being discovered, so she sealed the cistern opening with cement. After the incident, the judge believed there were problems with Fan Su's statement. She said she impulsively killed due to excessive anger, but the forensic examiner verified that Tian's head had multiple wounds. It was deduced she didn't just strike once, but continued multiple times. Moreover, after killing, she calmly disposed of the body, sealed the cistern, then lied to people saying her husband went out to work as a laborer. After the murder occurred, she lived her days as if nothing had happened, continuing to pretend nothing was wrong. Truly too cruel. In the end, Fan Su was convicted of intentional homicide and sentenced to death. Wang Bai was convicted as an accomplice and sentenced to 10 years in prison. Family tragedies like this don't only happen in China. Similar cases abroad also show how conflicts accumulated in marriage ultimately lead to irreversible, bloody consequences. One case that shocked public opinion occurred in California. Irene Ga Lai, 57, from California, was a medical expert trusted and beloved by her entire community. She was born in 1965 in the Philippines, was of Chinese descent, and grew up as an overseas Chinese there. In 1992, at just 24 years old, Irene graduated with a medical degree from the prestigious University of Santo Tomas in Manila. After completing her education, she came alone to the United States to build her career, chose California as her place of residence, and later became a U.S. citizen, officially beginning her journey to build an outstanding medical career. With over 30 years of experience, Irene was an endocrinology and diabetes specialist, as well as the founder and CEO of California Diabetes and Hormone Specialists. For many years, she provided dedicated treatment and professional care to countless patients. In the medical field, Irene was highly regarded not only for her solid knowledge and expertise, but also for her warmth, thoughtfulness, and devoted attitude, making her an ideal doctor in the eyes of both patients and colleagues. Beyond her brilliant career, Irene also possessed what seemed like a happy and complete family. Her husband, Kevin, 62, was of Chinese descent and worked as a civil engineer, specializing in civil projects and land surveying in the Southern California area. He simultaneously held the position of president and CEO of his own company. After their marriage, the couple welcomed twin boys, now 16 years old. The family of four lived in the upscale residential area of San Marino, a suburb of Los Angeles, considered one of the safest and most expensive areas in the region. They owned a detached mansion valued at approximately $2.6 million, with 2,500 square feet of living space. Just when everyone believed this family was living in stability and fulfillment, tragedy suddenly struck less than a week into the new year of 2025 on January 6th. Devastating news spread throughout the community. Irene's house suddenly caught fire, and she was unable to escape the fierce flames. At that time, all reports indicated this was just a tragic fire accident. Irene's sudden passing left friends, patients, and neighbors shocked and heartbroken. However, what was even more shocking occurred 6 months later. As the investigation continued to expand, suspicious clues began to emerge, detail by detail, quietly raising spine-chilling questions. Was the fire that claimed Irene's life truly just an accident, or something much darker? At 9:45 a.m. on January 6, 2025, the San Marino Fire Department received an emergency call. The report indicated that a house at 2625 Lorraine Road in the upscale residential area was on fire. Just 5 minutes later, firefighters and police simultaneously arrived at the scene to take action. Upon arrival, firefighters discovered thick smoke filling the back door and side window area of the house, with dense smoke continuously billowing out. The flames were mainly concentrated in the rear half of the house. Unable to determine if anyone was trapped inside, firefighters immediately broke down the door to conduct a rescue operation. After some time fighting the blaze, the fire was finally brought under control. However, when the firefighting team conducted a comprehensive examination of the fire scene, they unexpectedly discovered a suspicious detail. In the area of the passageway leading to the backyard, a female body lay motionless, completely charred. This was precisely the central area where the flames erupted most violently throughout the entire fire. Due to exposure to extremely high temperatures during the prolonged burning process, the body had been severely carbonized to the point where the victim's identity could not be immediately recognized. What the scene revealed made everyone present feel something was rather strange. Specifically, both the location and the position in which this body appeared showed clearly abnormal signs. According to experience and common patterns, when a fire occurs in a residence, people trapped inside typically have an instinct to try to escape. They usually choose to move to places like bathrooms with water sources, bedrooms to hide, or head toward windows to seek opportunities to escape and call for help. However, this body appeared right at the boundary between the back door area and the rear yard. More notably, there were absolutely no traces around the body showing the victim had struggled, tried to crawl, or run away from the fire. Everything looked as if this woman had lost consciousness before the flames erupted, or simply didn't have time to react at all to save herself from danger. According to information gathered, the first person to report the fire was the owner of this house, a man named Kevin, 62 years old. He reported to police that at the exact moment this unfortunate incident occurred, he was driving his 16-year-old twin sons to baseball practice. When returning home from a distance, he suddenly saw billowing black smoke rising from behind his family's house. Recognizing the serious situation, he immediately called the emergency number 911 for help. Later, through the forensic expert's identity confirmation process, the body found inside the fire was Kevin's wife, 57-year-old Irene. Irene's body was then transferred to a professional forensic laboratory to conduct detailed and thorough examination steps to determine the exact cause of death. At the same time, the fire investigation team also quickly deployed comprehensive investigation work at the fire scene to clarify the cause of the fire. However, as the investigation delved deeper into the details, the case suddenly took a completely unexpected turn that made everyone reconsider. The detailed fire scene examination report revealed important findings. Investigators had identified at least 2 completely independent and distinct points of fire origin in the back door area of the house. This meant the fire didn't erupt from a single source and then spread, but appeared simultaneously from multiple different locations. Additionally, after thorough inspection, experts found no signs indicating the fire was caused by faulty electrical wiring or electrical short circuits. This completely ruled out the possibility that the house spontaneously caught fire due to common technical failures. But what made investigators especially vigilant and concerned was their next discovery. At the scene, residue of a suspicious liquid substance was found. After conducting preliminary analysis, results showed this was an accelerant, easily flammable like gasoline, or possibly similar alcohol-based combustible substances. These traces were clearly undeniable evidence showing this was a fire deliberately caused by humans. Simultaneously, the autopsy results determined Gao Lai suffered severe traumatic brain injury. Among her injuries were a fractured eye socket, broken nose, and a missing tooth. These wounds could not possibly have been created by the effects of flames in the fire. On the contrary, according to expert analysis, they very likely already existed on her body beforehand, meaning before the fire erupted. Based on this medical evidence, the forensic expert made a preliminary assessment that Irene had already passed away, or at least was in a completely unconscious state at the time the fire occurred. This finding also reasonably explained why her body had absolutely no escape response. She simply no longer had the ability to react to danger. Near the body, the San Marino Fire Department found a blood-stained frying pan and a metal baseball bat also stained with blood. The room had 2 points of fire origin, 1 point near the body and 1 point 6 feet away, with burn marks covering 60% of the victim's body surface. Additionally, police also paid special attention to a detail that, though small, was extremely important throughout the investigation process. That was Kevin's attitude and behavior throughout the entire incident. He appeared strangely normal, even abnormally so to the point of suspicion. Specifically, he not only showed no signs of emotional collapse like what one typically sees in a normal husband when facing his wife's sudden death. Even at the moment police officially informed him that his wife had died in the fire, he was still able to maintain an unbelievably rational and calm demeanor. Moreover, throughout the entire lengthy investigation process, he always displayed a very cooperative attitude with police investigation work, readily answering all questions smoothly. Although from one perspective, this cooperative and calm attitude outwardly appeared to be a good thing, a manifestation of a conscientious citizen. However, when compared to the normal, natural reactions that family members of victims in other fire incidents typically have, Kevin's attitude was distinctly different in a clear way. This difference not only didn't reduce suspicion, but on the contrary, increased the doubt and vigilance in the hearts of case investigators. After synthesizing all factors, including abnormal signs of the fire at the scene, suspicious physical evidence discovered, the content of the incident report, along with Kevin's abnormal reactions and behavior, police and the fire department held discussions together and reached a unanimous conclusion. They assessed that this fire was absolutely not an unfortunate accident, but very likely was an arson deliberately created by humans with a clear purpose. That was to cover up a much more serious crime, namely murder. Signs like multiple independent fire origins, the presence of accelerants, along with wounds on the victim's body, all pointed to a dark scenario. With this discovery, Irene's death was immediately transformed from a simple fire accident into a serious criminal case requiring thorough investigation. And notably, the first person to become the main suspect of the investigation was the man who had lived with her for many years, her husband, Kevin. Because there wasn't yet any direct evidence strong enough to clearly indicate Kevin was involved in the case, police didn't dare act hastily or without consideration. They could only quietly deploy deeper investigation steps without disturbing the suspect. San Marino City Police closely coordinated with the fire department and many different judicial agencies at various levels to cooperate in the investigation. They consecutively executed up to 25 different search warrants, targeting many important objectives, including Kevin's personal electronic devices, all his bank accounts, external contact records, as well as social activities to deploy a comprehensive and meticulous investigation. The investigation team proceeded to extract all data from the mobile phone, tablet, and computer that Kevin regularly used. They focused on thoroughly analyzing location data records, call history, message content, and even email exchanges contained within. The results obtained from analyzing this data revealed something extremely suspicious. On the morning the incident occurred, from beginning to end, all of Kevin's activities only stayed and occurred in the area near his own house. More importantly and notably, location data from his mobile phone clearly and undeniably showed that during the time period when the fire occurred, Kevin had never actually left the area around his house. Police immediately conducted investigation and screening of all video footage from surveillance cameras installed around Kevin's residential area. Results showed there were no recordings capturing images of Kevin leaving his residence, or scenes of him driving out at the mentioned time. At the same time, when police contacted the baseball field that Kevin claimed he had taken his children to for practice, they also found no records or evidence showing his twin sons had appeared there that morning. Contrary to what Kevin had presented, a neighbor living nearby reported that on the exact morning the incident occurred, they personally witnessed Kevin going back and forth multiple times on the driveway right in front of his house. What was notable was that his expression at that time looked heavy, anxious, and his manner and behavior also appeared abnormal. All these discoveries and evidence directly completely overturned Kevin's statement about taking his children to baseball practice at the time of the fire. They simultaneously seriously weakened the alibi he had initially presented. As the investigation was intensified and went even deeper, police took another important step forward in tracing and thoroughly understanding the marital relationship between Kevin and Irene. And they discovered that although this couple appeared to the outside world to have good feelings and happiness, in reality their marriage had long been just an empty shell. Only maintaining appearances, police conducted detailed investigation of bank records, exchanged messages, and emails of both people. Through this, they discovered the relationship between this couple had been strained for a very long time. Specifically, since 2003, Irene had briefly filed for divorce, showing this marriage had problems from long ago. By August 2024, just a few months before the incident occurred, Irene had officially hired a lawyer to seriously initiate divorce proceedings. Not only that, she also set about modifying her will with very important contents. She intended to transfer complete ownership of the house valued at up to $2.6 million into her own name, and simultaneously completely revoke Kevin's inheritance rights to this family asset. Additionally, Irene also requested her lawyer to register a restraining order against Kevin. She had clear plans to evict Kevin from this house to protect her own safety and life, as well as property rights for herself and her twin sons. Police also conducted interviews with many neighbors living around this family to gather more information. Neighbors reported they frequently heard Irene and Kevin arguing fiercely. The causes of these arguments all revolved around and were closely related to issues regarding finances, divorce, and division of child custody. Neighbors also described Kevin as someone with a relatively isolated, withdrawn personality, rarely having interaction or socializing with the surrounding community. He was often seen alone, quietly wandering back and forth outside the house with an unhappy expression. When investigating deeper into the financial and work situation, police discovered Kevin's company had long fallen into very difficult, ineffective operating conditions. Although nominally he was listed as the person in charge of running a company specializing in construction projects and land surveying, in reality this company had not had stable clients for a long time. In recent years, the company's business performance continuously declined, to the point it had almost completely ceased operations. The consequence was that Kevin had fallen into prolonged unemployment for a long time, without any stable source of income to maintain life. His financial situation therefore became extremely terrible and difficult. On the contrary, Irene had built for herself a solid position in the medical field. She not only had stable income, but was truly the main economic pillar for the entire family for a long time. People familiar with the actual situation of both revealed to police that Kevin, although outwardly appearing to be gentle, well-mannered, and rational, in reality had long been dependent on Irene. This caused him to gradually lose status, power, and voice in the house. Even both economically and emotionally, he had to endure much pressure and harbor growing dissatisfaction toward his wife. Those who knew the situation well also pointed out that Kevin, although outwardly seeming compliant and obedient, in reality deep inside, he harbored an extremely strong desire to control everything around him. The contradiction between the reality of having to depend on his wife and the craving for control created enormous psychological tension. Additionally, Irene herself had shared with her closest friends that Kevin was someone with unstable, erratic emotions. Sometimes he would apply forms of cold, sophisticated violence to treat her. He even frequently used emotional blackmail tactics, making her feel guilty and forced to comply with his wishes. The clues police investigated not only made them begin to suspect Kevin had strong murder motives, but also made the entire fire incident even more complex. Police deduced that Kevin very likely, after learning Irene was about to divorce him, strip his property and residence rights, even planned to evict him from the house, completely lost emotional control. Facing career bankruptcy with nowhere to go, identity and dignity drowning in many overlapping pressures, Kevin went to extremes, deciding to commit revenge murder. Police theorized Kevin on the morning the incident occurred attacked Irene, first using a blunt object to make Irene lose consciousness, even die on the spot. Then he used combustible materials to set fire to the rear part of his house, to destroy the body, cover up murder traces, and disguise the case as a fire caused by electrical wiring that resulted in a tragic accident. However, Kevin clearly underestimated the professionalism and meticulousness of police and forensic personnel. From burn traces in the fire, characteristics of body injuries, to analysis comparing phone location data and surveillance video, evidence step by step pieced together a picture of crime gradually approaching the truth. On July 3, 2025, San Gabriel police officially arrested Kevin and immediately escorted him to Los Angeles County Jail to await interrogation. 5 days later, on July 8th, Kevin appeared in court for the first time to participate in a preliminary hearing. There, he faced 2 felony charges brought by the local prosecutor's office, including murder and arson resulting in death. Nevertheless, Kevin firmly declared not guilty to all charges. According to California law regulations, the judge initially set bail at $2.25 million. However, considering the particularly serious nature of the case, the high likelihood of the defendant fleeing, and the potential danger level, the judge denied Kevin's request for release on bail, and those are the 2 cases for today. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next videos.